It says 6:01. We're a minute late. Good evening, everyone. We're about to start this meeting of the Sumner County Board of Education for June the 18th, 2019. Before we do, I'm going to stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to our country's flag. And anyone who would like to join me, please feel free to do so. Now pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I gotta get logged in here. Regular meeting. Join the meeting. There we are. Well, this meeting's been called to order, and first item on the agenda is roll call. Mr. Johnson, do you have the roll? I kind of knew you might have it, but I asked you anyway. Next item on the agenda is adoption of regular agenda. Is there a motion? Motion approved by Mr. Bachman, second by Mr. Wise. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. We have an agenda. Next item on the agenda is the adoption of consent agenda. Is there motion approved by Mr. Wise, second by Mr. Daniels? Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is consideration of minutes from the May 21st, 2019 regular meeting. Is motion approved by Mr. Daniels, second by Ms. Hayes. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is recognition and hearing the delegations. We apparently do not have any. Next is matters involving council. There is none tonight.
Chairman, Mr. Chairman, excuse me. I apologize, my button on my microphone is not working as I've been trained to work it. But we do have a Boy Scout from rising sophomore at Hendersonville High School, Ryan Dillon, who's here tonight, working on communications merit badge. Mr. Dillon, Scout Dillon, would you please stand up?
Good job.
And congratulations. Part of his requirement is to attend a public meeting where there's a discussion and or debate.
Okay.
And he said he hoped we might be of such a mind tonight. I cannot assure that, but we'll do our best to do our duty. Item by item. Good night. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Hawkins. Thank you, Ms. Hawkins, for bringing that up. Next item on the agenda is report from the director, Dr. Phillips.
Hey, so Scott and I are a little bit sleepy. Yeah. Long meeting last night at the county, and so I'm going to give you kind of the short cliff note version, and then I can answer any questions if you have any. We had a really long extended discussion about the sewer for the new school's campus, which I thought that probably would be the last thing we'd be talking about for 6 hours. But we did. You know, I think there were kind of two things wrapped up in the conversation. One, we've been working for probably 18 or so months with our engineer to get the sewer plan, to do surveying, staking, to approach property owners to get the plan approved by White House Utility District and TDEC. All of those things take time to do. So we've probably got about 18 months or so in that process, and of course have gotten to the point where in October a company that purchases easements for White House Utility District, who under the law has to approach and condemn or capture the easement for the sewer and utilities. So we started probably October, November, the first contact with those individuals. There are 15 landowners there where we would have to buy easements along the creek there at Long Hollow, and then turn up and come into the campus. And so there was some resistance early on. In the meetings that I attended with White House Utility District, I expressed to them I did not believe those particular homeowners would ever be satisfied with any design or any type of purchase of easement. So we rolled forward for months and months and months with me pressing people to move on. We know what the outcome's going to be. And finally, we kind of came to a head where they said, well, we don't want the Greenway, which is a county, that's not do with sewer, it's a county project. We don't want the Greenway and the access road that's going to be used as a Greenway in the easement. So I think rightly so, Scott, and some of the county commissioners said we can understand that. So they were going to release that portion of the easement. So it would be sewer only, exclusive to just the sewer. And we thought that'd be a good solution. They had said in public meetings in previous weeks at the county that if that occurred, they would sign the easements. Well, guess what? That occurred and they still didn't want the easement. So, you know, at the end of the day, they, along with about, I don't know, 100 really mad folks came over to the county. And they cursed everybody in sight, me, everybody else, about trying to provide toilets, working toilets to the new school, which I thought would be kind of a low standard. Nevertheless, we're probably there six hours or so on just that, I would say. Public comment and discussion, presentations from White House Utility and White House Utility District, and also Jim Harrison, who does our engineering. And so the amendment for the county to remove the Greenway from the easement passed, 20-3. And then the main motion passed. I think it was 23 or something very similar to that. Pretty much straight line. And then one commissioner kind of muddied the water a little bit, I guess is the best way to put it, and said, well, I just, before the vote on the original amendment, said, well, I'd just like to refer it back to committee. Didn't say what committee, I don't think, but a committee. But really didn't state much of a purpose about what you would refer back. I mean, we're building a sewer. So it got a little bit confusing there, and Scott did a good job to kind of get it back, but we talked for about an hour and 15 minutes or so about the comment. So at the end of the day, they did release the Greenway from the easement, which is good. That's what the landowner's biggest issues were. And really didn't do anything else. We don't ask them to approve the sewers. We just don't do that. We have the engineers design them on our projects. We've never asked. The money gets appropriated, and then we, you know, design it, and we approve it, approve the bids, and we move on. So there's some confusion, I think, over at the county with some commissioners, very few, that they're going to have a big discussion about how they think the sewer should be ran, contrary to what the engineers say and White House Utility says, which is a glorious discussion. To have an untrained person talk to you about how they think a sewer should work. It was 6 hours of it, right, Scott? It's wonderful. You can watch it if you have time. It was video. So we're trying to kind of navigate that because they have really no legal authority, I don't think, in kind of the first quick check with the attorneys to do that. They've appropriated the money. The money's there. It's specifically in the minutes when the money was appropriated, what it's for, and we've done everything just like it's supposed to be done according to all the rules of Tennessee and how we've handled every project before. But it just comes down to there's just some folks that want to cause chaos, and this is one thing that they thought they could do it with. So we've Kind of got a little spot here where we're gonna have to figure out exactly what the next step is. You know, I've talked to White House Utility today a couple of times. I've talked to some commissioners. You know, obviously, Mr. Langford and I have talked. And we're hopeful that within the next week or so, we'll get it back on track, meaning that there'll be another meeting and we'll rectify the boat here. I think after you've had, and you guys, some of you have been in these situations, if you've have people screaming at you for 4.5 hours and you've had 2 10-minute breaks and it's 6 hours deep in a meeting at midnight, sometimes you don't think, I mean, you know, you've kind of been battered around there and you're the next day you go, I really didn't want to do that. So anyway, from the sewer perspective, we think we'll get it back on track. I will probably, if it's okay with you guys, send you an email sometime next week and just give you an update. The shortest way possible in an email, not to bore you, but just to say, hey, we think we've got it rectified. I can assure you those landowners that I told White House Utility in October, these folks will be mad. Will be mad. And they're going to be mad forever. But we have to have water and sewer at the school. I mean, that's just what we have to do. So, and we have to do that in the best way. We can't do something today to make 7 people happy that handicap the schools in the county for 50 years. You just can't do that. I'm sorry, but you just can't do it. So at that point, we were about 1 o'clock. We started budget at 1. Yeah, 1 o'clock, something like that. So we're trying to do budgets at 1 in the morning. We got down through some resolutions on the budgets and passed some of them. We always group all of our budgets together, county and school, sheriff, highway, everybody. And so when that occurred, there was a lot of discussion around the county's budget, probably some with the schools, but most of the county. Our budget balances against the tax rate. So whatever eventually happens with the certified tax rate, as long as it's not negative, then our budget works, right? The county budget wasn't necessarily built that way. So they were presenting things within their budget last evening that would not balance against a certified tax rate that was neutral. Does that make sense? So when they're all lumped together like that, we had some commissioners that I think really didn't want to do that, right? They didn't want to do that. Too much unknown out there. Approving a budget with expenditures that they don't have the revenue stream to pay for secured because they don't know what that rate's going to be. Okay, so which is logical, no doubt. We didn't pull them apart. They made a motion probably around 2 o'clock, Scott, 2:15. 2:15 or so made a motion to just do continuation budgets, which we've done before. I think we did the last one maybe in 2013, and I'll explain what that means. And then that passed very quickly, and then of course the motion to adjourn was faster than they could stand up. But of course it's 2:30 at that point in the morning. So it was an kind of an interesting thing. I'm not sure beyond the easement, beyond the language of the easement changing in regard to the greenway to making it exclusive sewer access. I don't really know other than that in a continuation budget what happened in 8 hours, but it was a fun time. Those of you that called me, I said, please do not come. And I did that for a reason, because I knew, you know, there was be no reason to be there. You know, it's going to be what it's going to be. And I can't tell you that, you know, hopefully we get this worked out and things move forward. I do anticipate that we will have to, we meaning the county and White House Utility, we will have to condemn some of those properties. They will not sign an easement. And at the end of the day, it has zero to do with what they've publicly said about the greenway or anything else. I'm going to tell you what it is. They don't want school up there. period. They were on, 3 of them were on the record a month after we bought the property saying, I want school up here, because school comes, guess what else comes? Other houses and developments, and we don't want any part of that. So when you run it right down to the ground, that's where the truth's at. The truth's at, some of them are gonna have to be taken if we're gonna have sewer to the school, because there's no other way to do it. And that's always very difficult, because it puts people that are believers in property rights in a tough spot, But I do think after the county removed the Greenway portion and did, some other things, I think, it's the least intrusive way to make it happen. There will be probably in the next week or so, hopefully, we'll get it worked out where, they kind of understand we're not going back through and asking your permission about where to place a sewer. We have qualified people that have already said this is where it should go. And we're going to go with what they say. Okay? It's not the time to be an armchair civil engineer. The budgets, I do think that we have plenty of support for our budget to pass regardless when the time comes. Even if that's September, I would think it's probably going to be September, because it'll be September before the county considers a tax rate. They still have to go through the process of the appeals closing, equalization closing. Mr. Isbell sending the neutral tax rate to the state, and the state sending it back, and then it gets presented to the county, and the county has that discussion about what they're going to do with that rate. And so I'm assuming probably September or so. Here's how the continuation budget works. We have a restriction on what we can spend monthly. We're in good financial shape. So the continuation budget for us this time doesn't feel like it did in 13. So it will be more difficult and more work on Amanda and her team than anyone else. What it means for the employees inside the system, operationally, will be very little. We'll do everything. We'll start school and do everything just like we always do. You won't even know it. From a pay perspective, teachers that are on the scale, we would go ahead and give them their step, their money, just like there was no issue. Okay? All of the other employees would have to wait until the budget's approved. Okay? So all of those things we discussed about pay changes for nurses and classified staff that were going to get the increases for custodians and those types of things, that will all have to happen in October if the budget's passed in September. So instead of a July or August paycheck, you're looking at an October paycheck where those pay changes occur. Okay. Now that will be retroactive, so it'll feel the same as it always has at the first of the year, and then October will feel really good, and then November will level back out, and it'll be the same for the rest of the year. Does that make sense? So, yeah, because they've worked that time, and we intended to give it. So really, it's just you have to kind of hold everything in place. You have to hold everything in place until the budget's passed, so you don't have expenditures beyond what the state says you can do in a continuation budget. So that's really the short end of kind of what happened. I've had, I think, a couple of questions. A couple of you have asked me, and I've said, what does this do in regard to the school? It's going to delay the school. There'd be no question about that. You're not going to. I know you want to ask a question. Can I finish this thought? Sure. I've been awake so long. If I don't finish it, I'll probably forget it. It will delay the school. People ask, well, how long will it delay? I don't know. If we kick the can around over there for 5 months, it's going to delay it 5 months. If we kick it around 2 months, it's still going to miss the first of the school year. So you're not going to move. School openings are timed by breaks and things. You don't just move on a Tuesday because you get ready to. So, I think that's the reason that we had a really tight window of construction anyway, because a lot of work has to be done. It's a big campus. If you remember when we had the room full here with folks from Carrollton mainly, and I think Mr. Hawkins asked the question, and I said, look, you don't know what's going to happen. If you get a delay and you don't open that building, you've got a third year of new people on top of you. Right? When we were talking about portables, you remember that? And I said, you can't do that. Because I'm telling you, there's too many moving parts here on this big of a deal to risk that. And that's the case. That's what's going to happen is at least we've moved ourselves into a position where those students will be in classrooms, and even if they stay an additional year, some of them it might work out fine because they don't have to move schools as fast. But so some of them it might actually be a little bit better and take some of that sting out. But I just want you all to understand that there's not going to be an opening of school for 21. There's no way we'll ever meet that. And a lot of it has to do with, I can't, in good faith, number one, I can't put out a bid, even though we're getting close with all the things we have to do for the construction side. I can't put a bid for a $100 million campus with sewer running through it. You know what I mean? Without the sewer already being in the work. Does that make sense? That'd be the dumbest thing I've ever seen. So I kind of got to wait and get the process happened over there before I can approve bids, put bids out and approve them, because that needs to be part of the bid package for the GC, so they can see what they have to do on the campus to connect to whatever is the final outcome for the off-site sewer that runs down the creek. Miss Pat, you had a question.
Yes, I just wondered if it would be a better strategy to not give anybody the raise and let them all wait. Because I fear that they're gonna feel like, well, look, the teachers are getting theirs, we're not getting ours.
Yeah, the reason that we would do that is because the state
Oh,
checks that against the salary schedule. The state does.
Yeah.
And so they're going to check it to make sure that what we're paying in that salary scale is above what they say you're supposed to pay. So I need to do it immediately. And we did that in 13 too. It's happened about every other year here. So I do worry a little bit about that, but not so much, because it's a step that they're used to getting. The biggest thing for me is, we just are going to be in a situation where our custodians and those folks that were looking for, cafeteria workers and folks looking for that big bump
yeah.
in classified, we're going to have to communicate to them that because of this, you will get it, but it will be, after budgets are approved. So that's kind of where that's at. Questions? Yes, ma'am.
So, I'm having a little bit of a hard time understanding why, if we approved, and I thought that the county had approved the money for the sewer, why is it not possible, why has the engineering's already gone through, so why can that not be started?
So,
Why are we still having a discussion,
right, I wondered that for 6 hours last night. If you read all of the minutes from 2016 forward, where we discussed this project, where they've appropriated dollars for the sewer, the infrastructure design, architecture fees for the schools, the bonds that we sold, if you read all of that stuff, which I've read it all today, it's all very clear. all the records there. Nowhere in the minutes does it say that we're gonna bring back the sewer design for them to discuss. I mean, it just doesn't say that. You know, so that's the confusing part is, you know, why, and I think that's the part I hope I can work out in the next week, is for them just to say, we don't really have any, we couldn't make a change to the sewer if we wanted to. It's a school project. Greenway's not connected to it any longer. So the county's out of it beyond, we have a statutory authority to statutory requirement to provide water and sewer for the school. That's their only thing left. And so they've got to do that, but it doesn't mean that they get to tell the engineer where they'd like to run the sewer. So I hope we work that out in the next week or so, and it doesn't necessarily slow us up that much. Condemnation of property, even for the public good, takes a little time. You know, it's going to be 90-day run. They've already been served letters, but it will still be a little bit of time here through court and that sort of thing to make it happen. So that's why I think it could, you know, could push it out. We're kind of getting down to some very specific details about the schools, actually the buildings and the structures and that kind of stuff. You know, I hope sometime in maybe September study session, something like that. May reserve the right to say October, but I'm trying to get it for September to have some renderings here and some things that you guys can see, the layout, floor plan, the site plan, where things are going to be, how it lays out on the campus, all that kind of stuff, before we ever put it out to bid. So I'm trying to press on to get that, enough of that done to bring that to you guys probably at the September study session. But if I can't get it by then, it'll be October. That's what we're shooting for. Other questions? I know it's a lot of information. I think I told Ms. Andrews this. It's just, in these projects and processes, you just never know. It's different on every one. You know, it's just different. And probably if you asked me months ago, where do you think the sticking point will be? It wouldn't have been with trying to get the sewer. I mean, I knew it would be an issue because we had landowners that probably wouldn't want to do that. You know, sometimes you just never know. But all things that are good, require some patience and some fortitude sometimes to make them happen. And so we'll just hang in there and we'll get it done. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Phillips. Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll move along.
I have a question.
Oh, your light on. There you go.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Phillips, in light of what you shared with the board tonight, on behalf of the parents in my district who are most affected by the rezoning decisions that we made in the past few months, I'm anticipatorily disappointed on their behalf that we're now facing what we'd hoped to have of an opening in August 2021. That's now being pushed off because, let me see if I understand this correctly, in part because of opposition to the necessary sewer and water pipelines. The county, which has the legal responsibility for providing the school system with sewer and water, has deferred its decision. Is that a fair statement?
I wouldn't say that deferring it's a fair statement. I would say that the county made an amendment to remove the greenway from the easement that they were requesting from the landowners.
All right.
But they did not do anything to the sewer. So the sewer obviously is still as it was designed, as it has been approved by White House Utility and TDEC. It's still there. I think we need clarification from the county side to make sure that what happened last night doesn't change that the folks that have condemnation letters, we still need to move forward with that process. Because they've already received those. They received those several weeks ago. So, and some homeowners that are on that stretch have already signed. You know, some signed early, some signed for both, some signed once they knew it was only going to be a sewer. They said, yeah, good. So it's kind of a mixed bag. It's about half and half. Out of, I think it's about 15 or 16 parcels there, different property owners. I think it would be more accurate to say that the county removed language regarding the greenway
All right.
from the requested easements, property owners, but nothing was removed about the sewer. So you've got a little bit of trick there. That White House, under public law, White House Utility District has to be the person to condemn the property.
Because it's within their area of service.
Their area of service, and they're covered under the law that they are the people to condemn the property. Typically, that is done in connection with the county or city. The municipality that's driving the boat to condemn the property.
When you say condemn the property, though, you really just mean the easement.
That's
of
right.
the property,
Yeah.
not what we need.
Condemnation means that you say, we're not going to sign that easement regardless of how much money you give us, whether it's fair value or not, or any concessions that you make, we are not going to agree to it. And so once you get to that point, then there's nothing left to do other than to say, we're going to condemn that portion for the requested easement.
That's the eminent domain.
That's right. So I think that the situation that we're in now is that we want to make certain, okay, that the county realizes that we're not going to make a change to the sewer, and that that's designed, and that they're still going to have to be a partner in that condemnation, right? Because they have a statutory requirement to provide the water and sewer to the school. And so we still have to have their connection to White House Utility to make that happen. Now, you know, I don't want to get into a bunch of legalese, but at the end of the day, of course, you'll understand this more than I do, but there are other methods under the law to do that, but they're timely, costly, and we would prefer not to take that course of action, even though you guys know me. I've already made the phone calls and got the wheels moving that if we have to do that, we have to do it. But we would prefer not to. And White House Utility would prefer not to, and I think the overwhelming majority of the county commissioners don't want that either. And I feel really good that we'll get a resolution here, hopefully really soon, that just kind of clears all that up, and we can move forward.
Any other questions?
Chairman?
Ms. Hayes.
Please, thank you. Just to rewind a minute, the county commission had already approved, you said in 2016, the wheels were moving. Sewer was part of that, so I mean, there's documented minutes where
yeah.
they voted to approve. So you were revisiting it last night because the room was packed with 100 people and wanted to speak against it.
Yes.
Okay.
Is that accurate?
The issue came up with some of the homeowners were resistant to sign the easement because of the greenway and the access road. So what we did is we took what the homeowners had requested and put it into a resolution to remove the greenway easement. We made the easement, instead of it being sewer or non-exclusionary, we made it exclusionary to just be sewer. And then we put into into the resolution that before there was a part that was going to run across someone's driveway where Mr. Frills used to live on Long Hollow Pike. It's going to go under the bridge, so it makes it less intrusive on her property, and then using a substance that's not a hard access road. So we gave the homeowners everything that they asked for, and then, you know, as Dr. Phillips mentioned, we've got a small group of commissioners that just want to move the goalpost constantly, and so, you know, basically the resolution really clears up. It should make the sewer easements easier to get, but there's no, I mean, from my perspective, there's nothing that the commission can do to question the sewer, but that's the boondoggle that we're in now to clear up.
What else? All minds clear. All right, let's move along then. New business, next item on the agenda, discussion interaction regarding the board member schedule for 19 and 20. Is there a motion? Motion by Ms. Andrews, second by Ms. Bachman. Uh-oh, what happened? Well, we got a second A.
We got a second and a third.
We got a second and a third. I'll let Mr. Johnson weigh that out. Anyway, we got a second on it anyway. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is discussion interaction regarding bids for Westmoreland football building. Dr. Phillips, I'm sure you can tell us about that.
Yes, we bid, this is a building that Mr. Duffer has looked at a couple of different times. We've engineered and re-engineered, but it continues to come in too high for the dollars that they have allocated, raised, and otherwise with parents and the money that we've given over the school district has given over the last several years. So Mr. Duffer's in agreement. We should reject these bids because it's too high. We'll have to do something else.
Motion to approve the rejection of the bid.
Motion approved by Mr. Wise, second by Mr. Gregory. Any discussion?
I have a question.
Mrs. Andrews.
Do you know, like, in the gist of what exactly they're wanting for this football building, that a bid comes back at $1 million for a football building?
Well, it was pretty big and nice, and it's got some site. The way, if you've been to Westmoreland, you know where if you've been to, well, you haven't had. This particular building was sitting where the current field house is, right behind the bleachers. And that area is pretty tight and close to the property line and a drainage ditch. And there's an issue that's always kind of been there, to the best of my knowledge from talking to Rick and everybody else, Terry Herndon, that there's always been an issue with water runoff going into that building. We've built some curbing and some other things around it. So it was a good little bit of site work that had to be done up front to make sure you didn't build a building that had the same issue, a new building with the same water and runoff issues. It was a pretty big building, and it was built. It was built more like we would build a school, brick block, brick fascia. It was just, it would have been a really nice building. But I mean, it was $150 a foot, and 70 a foot. So that's the reason the bids were high. They were high because the building was really nice, and we had some site work that had to be done.
So are they changing that for it to be more?
Yeah, they'll either have to. Yeah, they're going to have to kind of ramp down what they're doing. And so I think it's the second version we've been through, and we'll keep working with them. But I think this time they kind of figured out that they can't afford to do these kind of things.
What was the available?
Mr. Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What was the available budget item compared to where the budget bids came in?
I don't know, because they had money that they had raised over several years with the quarterback club. They had some booster money, and then they had the dollars that we've given them. So I'm not sure, because I don't know the amounts of all those things, but it was a considerable bit short. I mean, I think, they were looking at a building that would have been $450, $500, and it's double that. To the best of my recollection, talking to Mr. Duffer.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, is there a motion? There's already been a motion in the second. Yeah, we had that discussion, didn't we? All in favor say aye. All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item on the agenda, discussion and interaction regarding bids for Ellis Middle School turn lane. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion to move, I heard Ms. Hayes first, second by Mr. Wise. Any discussion now?
This is, I want to make sure everybody understands, this is to reject the bid. Now, I'm going to tell you about this. Tammy Hayes, as we've talked about this for a year and 5 months or so. So down at Ellis, where you get off 31 on the Indian Lake Boulevard, there, going out the peninsula, there's always been an issue right there. I'm assuming it has gotten worse over time as population has grown. It's always gotten a little bit worse because people are lining up there on the shoulder to turn into Ellis. And then people are trying to go straight through the light, traveling onto the peninsula. And they can't. So they veer out into the traffic that's coming off the peninsula, and it's just kind of a real, not what I would consider optimal. I think everybody that travels that road knows it, and it's not a new occurrence. It's been happening. That school's been there a long time, and the peninsula's been populated a long time. So it's not a big deal as far as that the increase, but it is an issue. So we met with Mayor Clary, Ms. Hayes and I did, and we said, hey, we'll do some work to see what it would take to do a turn lane here, and then we will partner with you to try to make that happen. This is probably spring of last year. We couldn't get it engineered because it's a pretty good sized project. You can see from the bids. We couldn't get it engineered and accomplished last summer. So I said, hey, we'll look at it, get the wheels moving, and have it lined up so we can do it next summer. You guys figure out what parts you can pay for and do, and we'll see what we can do. So I have Jim Harrison, the school district pays. We have Jim Harrison to design it to meet the code and standards for road, and we put it out to bid. And so when the bids came back, I said to Mayor Clary, hey, here's how much it cost. We've got to either accept it or reject it at my board meeting. What would you like to do? So I didn't hear anything, and then I sent an email back and I said, hey, I need to know something. What's the city's commitment here to making this happen? And he responded that they didn't have any money, and they would move the flashing light, which would take Andy's crew about an hour. And we would pay the $104,000. And I said, I don't think that's going to work. I don't think I can recommend that to my board. So that's where we're at. I would have been happy to recommend because I think it would have helped the school traffic. And I think it would have helped traffic on Indian Lake Boulevard. But I did not think that it was reasonable for us to carry all the weight. So I just said, no, we're not going to do that. So I'm just recommending you reject it. Now, I did ask Mayor Clary, I said, hey, if you want to put it in your budget, they're doing their budgets. And I said, if you want to put it in your budget for next year, now we have a good cost estimate of what the job will be. And I already have it engineered. So ramp up time's pretty fast next year. And so it may come back, and I will be happy to present it to you guys and say, I think we should do it. But I think we need to be a little bit more in the middle of the road here with how we're handling it, not us pay for all of it and then they move one flashing school zone sign.
Any further discussion? Mr. Gregory.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a word here. That is desperately needed. And the first time after you were hired, Sumner County, that I ever spoke with you on the phone, I'm sure you don't remember this, but I was sitting in that line.
Picking up, yep.
And wondering if I was ever going to get through.
Yep.
And that's been
8 years.
8 years ago.
There's no question that it will help. It would help. Typically, when we try to partner with cities on things like this, we try to do some cost share situation. And that's typically pretty much how we've done it in the past. But, you know, he said that they couldn't do that right now, and I respect that. You know, the good thing about it is we have it engineered, and it won't take us long to go back out to bid next year. I don't know how much the cost will change, maybe up, maybe down. But it certainly gives us something to shoot for.
Mr. Hawkins, I see you reaching for the button.
Thank you. Very, very perceptive, Mr. Chairman. In March, Channel 4 did a news story about this that I was looking up, recalling, I pulled it up online here. And they talked about how Indian Lake Boulevard backs up as people are trying to leave the peninsula and others are waiting to turn in to pick up children at Ellis Middle School, the former Hendersonville High School. And the quote from one of the homeowners or one of the drivers: every day when the traffic is coming and going and the school is getting out, this turn is crazy. That's exactly what you're talking about there. Mayor Clary was quoted in that particular article saying, we're going to team up with the school system this summer and build that. But if I understood when you said he said there's no money, are you saying he, the engineer, or he, the mayor, said this?
He, the mayor.
Okay. So what he had hoped to be able to co-fund in March turned out to be not available funds.
I think when JJ clarified what teamed up means I get to do all the work and pay for it.
Okay.
Which is not what my teamed up means.
Okay.
But either way,
Okay. So I'm just
doesn't really
clarifying.
matter for clarification. I mean, at the end of the day, I think it would be a good project, but if they can allocate some dollars to it, which they may in the future, then we can redo the project and hopefully help out. You also have to understand too that there's a thoroughfare project that the city has with the MPO that's still not funded, but it will widen Indian Lake Boulevard all the way down to the crossroads. Now, when will that happen? I don't know. It's dependent on funding and project lists and everything else, and so I'm not knowledgeable enough, but I do know it's on the list. We also had a development there at Kroger.
Right.
That I think contributed quite a bit to the problem. But we didn't really get a lot out of the development to help with that 1,800 feet of
impacted lanes.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think there's a number of things moving parts there.
And I'm thinking very practically now is just as when we're on Highway 109 in Gallatin and it's being built, through a series of flagmen at each end, we're able to relieve some of the waiting lines. Would there be a crude but possibly effective way during the school year of having city police allow passages, sort of like flag lanes, during that afternoon pickup? Is there some way to relieve that?
Sure,
pressure?
it could be. I mean, we don't have jurisdiction over that
Okay.
because we don't do that. We don't control any of that.
Yeah,
we
this
don't
report was
request
right
that.
after there
Sure.
was somebody who got impatient and pulled out
Yeah.
and hit an
Yeah.
oncoming car. So
We didn't know that news story was happening until we saw it, because I think Ms. Hayes asked me about it, and I said I don't know anything about the news story.
Okay.
But either way, I think Mayor Clary wants to see it happen. Obviously, I do, but we're just going to have to find some ways to kind of meet in the middle here.
may the record reflect that we discussed an idea in the presence of our Boy Scout regarding the need to widen and provide a turn lane at Ellis Middle School. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Mr. Duncan.
How long is this bid good for?
I think 60 days.
Okay, I wouldn't help to push it, kick the can, because I know that we're.
What was
just-
that question?
How long is this bid good for? Is it 60 days, 90 days,
Oh, I'm
30
sorry.
days?
That's not what I
Because
thought.
I
the
was
question
entertaining,
was.
maybe we defer this and we put a little pressure on Hendersonville because their new fiscal year will be beginning, but it sounds like it really wouldn't work because we'd expire our, 60 days, so thank you.
Yep. And we also were trying to time that where with the amount of work, if we approved it, then they'd be done by August 1st. And so really delaying it out till after the start of school really would create more headache than what we got now.
Motion second on the floor to reject this. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item, unfinished business, discussion and action regarding amendments to the general purpose budget. Is there a motion? By who? Oh, Mr. Duncan. And second by Ms. Andrews. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All opposed, say no. Seeing none, motion carries. Next item, discussion and action regarding amendment to the federal budget for SNAP budget. Motion approved by Mr. Wise, second by Mr. Gregory. All right. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is discussion of study session items. If you have discussion, if you have one on your mind tonight, we could talk about it. Otherwise, just give Jeremy a call or Dr. Phillips.
Yeah, just a
We'll be in August,
reminder
yeah,
that
there's
the next study session is August. One very short item that we brought up in the study session that I think we can answer and clarify here. I've received a couple of follow-up questions about our proposal to buy land, the 7 acres, near the county administration building. And I've been asked to defend or explain that. And what I've explained is that we as a school board are tasked with planning for growth. When the school board back in the 70s and 80s was charged with doing the same thing, they went out and bought land that they would hold for sometimes for several years in order to be able to build at the necessary future time. And the buildings could be school systems, could be offices, could be transportation, could be any part of our multifaceted school operations. And I've explained that that is why that is being built, because it's an investment in the growth that we're already being tasked to deal with. And I was asked about why didn't we get an appraisal. I've explained that we got that we assessed the market values of comparable lots that were being sold and comparable acreage, and it was found to be within a fair market value and a good investment. And that's been my answer. Is there any other detail or aspect that should be added to make my answer more complete?
An awesome answer. Send that to me and I'll try.
Yeah, Mr. Hawkins, I was going to say that's
It was already priced and sold,
a
so we had to pay that to get it, period.
I think that's a very good answer. As far as putting it back on the study session, it's already been approved and
Yeah.
we've moved on,
Exactly.
so-
I'm just trying to
Make sure you're, yeah. that's right.
communicate.
Yeah.
And that particular piece of land is in my district as well. So I just wanted
Well,
to,
start digging.
I wanted to run by my answer with my 10 colleagues here and see if y'all have
We
any.
did a fine job.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Mr. Gregory, a study session item.
No, continuation
on.
on that.
We're on a
I've
study
been
session
asked a
item.
few times about that land, and I've had one comment, and that ended the conversation. They're not making any more of it. Period.
Thank you, Mr. Gregory. Anybody else have a study session item? Seeing none, communication from board members. We'll start with Ms. Hayes. Would you like to communicate?
I want to say, I'm so grateful for our director, management, leadership, and the professionalism on this board. I am honored and I'm very grateful to be able to serve with this group of people.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes. Ms. Bachman? Ms. Andrews? Mr. Duncan? Mr. Hawkins?
Happy June to all.
Mr. Wise?
No comment.
Ms. Brown?
Hey, ditto to Tammy.
Mr. Gregory?
No comment.
Mr. Wilkerson?
No comment.
No comment from the board chairman, so that means we move to adjournment. I feel so adjourned.
Thank y'all.